Okay, hello. You clicked on this video, which means that you are either really curious about where it is affordable to live in Colorado, or you're just like really desperate. And I'm assuming that for most of you, it's just curiosity. But if you're desperate for just a cheap place to live, no judgment. I understand. Colorado is insanely expensive. If this is your first time finding me on the internet, my name is Genevieve. I am a Colorado native. I happen to live in this state at the moment, and I am that friend you didn't know you needed to give you real, no frills, just real advice on living and moving to Colorado. I have no agenda. I am not a realtor. I'm just someone who really likes to give advice. Although if you do need a realtor, I can help you with that too. All right, enough with the BS. You clicked on this video, looking at my phone, because you want to know where are the actual cheapest places in Colorado to live. And just so you're aware, in this video, I'm truly talking about the bare bones cheapest places to live. I'm not talking about the best places to live that are also cheap. I'm just telling you, here are the places to live that are like just bare bones cheap. I have another video that's more of a combination about where is the best place to live that's also kind of more affordable. So I'll link that somewhere up here. So I'm going to be telling you the top 5 cheap places to live in Colorado. And I'm going to start kind of from the top of the list and work my way down to the bottom of the list where the cheapest of the cheap places to live in Colorado are. And at the very end of the video, my last place is going to surprise you a little bit. So watch till the end to see where the cheapest place in Colorado is to live. So we're going to start out the top of my list on the western slope of Colorado in the Grand Junction area. And I say the Grand Junction area because through my research, I found out that Grand Junction, Montrose, and a place called Clifton are all kind of in the same area in the western slope, and they're all about the same price range. That price range being about $300,000 to $350,000 for a 3-bedroom home that's about 1,500 square feet, right? Yeah. And you can find a lot of stuff that's even a lot cheaper than that. I saw plenty of nice homes that are exactly what I just said, that price range and that size. And I'm sure if you're just looking for like a 1-bedroom condo, you could probably easily find that in the Grand Junction area for like $100K. But here's the thing about the western slope in general. It is pretty isolated. The reason that it's a little bit cheaper is that once you're in Grand Junction, it's hours to get anywhere else. It's hours to get to Denver. You have to drive over the whole Rocky Mountain range to get to Denver. It's like a 3-some-hour drive. You're kind of close to Utah, but it's also a long ways to get anywhere in Utah. So you're kind of just in this bowl. It's a beautiful bowl. I like visiting there, but it's like you're in this bowl and it's like you're there and there's nowhere to go. I don't even know how those people fly out. There must be an airport somewhere around there, but I don't know about it. So you're isolated. There's not a lot of like big fancy cultural stuff going on. It is a rural-ish, mountain-ish. It's kind of a combination in that area of rural meets mountain, so like farmy meets mountain. And it's for people who really aren't planning to go places. It really is just when you're there, you're just sort of there and you don't go anywhere else. So for that reason, it could be a great place to retire if you're older and you just want to move to kind of a beautiful location, because it is beautiful. Of all the places on this list, this is the most beautiful. You're actually going to get the benefits of the Colorado mountains by living in the Grand Junction area, whereas the other places on my list, you're not really getting that benefit. So I guess for that reason, this is like the cheapest and like the only kind of mountain beauty location. But once you're there, you're like stuck there. So it's a great place to go. If you have no plans to travel, you just want to live in a nice sort of place and not ever go anywhere and just sort of go to the grocery store and there's nothing else going on, that area is great for you. Okay, Lord, I've only talked about one place and I'm already like, whoa, there's a lot to talk about. Alrighty, we're on next place. Let me just make sure I'm giving you real information. Okay. This next place. So this place is a place that native Coloradans who are not from this location just love to shit all over. And that's right, you guessed it. I'm talking about Pueblo. So Pueblo, Colorado is the only place on my list that's on the Front Range. And technically the Front Range is where everyone really wants to live. That's where it's the most expensive. It's the most popular. Denver, Colorado Springs, Boulder, Fort Collins, all of that's on the Front Range. And Pueblo is the most southern city on this list. That is quite a tongue twister. So it's technically kind of still on the Front Range, but it is also the meth capital of Colorado. And I, being a privileged white lady from Boulder, I'm obviously not really helping the problem by introducing you to Pueblo like that. Because in reality, I've only ever met one person who was ever truly born and raised in Pueblo, and they said it was actually pretty normal. There are some very, I guess, nice suburbs of Pueblo. I haven't spent enough time in these suburbs to really tell you for sure, but it seems like if you're in the right neighborhoods of Pueblo, it's pretty normal. It's going to be a pretty quiet upbringing. That's what my person that I met said. It was very quiet. It was like a very unexciting life, but in the right areas of Pueblo, it could be pretty safe. Maybe, I think. But I've also heard a lot of stories about robberies at pharmacies because they need that codeine and whatever. Oh my gosh, I'm selling this so well. But anyway, it's all to say that Pueblo is an option. It's also, I think, really changing. That's the other positive thing I'll add, is in the last 10 to 15 years, I've just gotten the vibe that Pueblo is growing a lot because it is one of the only places that's still inexpensive on the Front Range to live. So I noticed in my research of what they're selling right now there are a lot of new suburbs and brand new builds and things popping up around Pueblo, and they're fairly inexpensive again. Like I saw like a nice new build that was, I think, 4 bedrooms, and it was like close to, actually, I think it was $380K, and that's like, to get a new build in Colorado, there's nowhere, I mean, it's hard to find that for how nice this place looked. I'm like tripping all over the place, but you get the point. So Pueblo could be for you if you are really looking to save money. You don't actually care that much about being in some place with a cool status thing like Denver or wherever, but you still want to be on I-25 because that's the Front Range highway that goes north to south. So it's on I-25, it's got easy access because of that highway. So you're still kind of close, but you're also kind of not. Pueblo is not that close to Denver. It's like over 2 hours south of Denver, I would say, about. It's closer to New Mexico. But I guess you still have some access to the mountains because you're sort of right there on the Front Range, and I don't know. So it could be an option for you, so look into it. Lord, I hope no one in Pueblo comes for me. Okay, now I'm excited because we're getting into the good stuff. And by good stuff, I mean the absolute cheapest stuff. So I have another video that is called, I think, 5 Things No One Tells You About Moving to Colorado, and I will link that video up here, whatever, if you've never seen it. And in that video, I made a very famous map where I tried to lay out Colorado for you, and eastern Colorado is what I labeled as Kansas Part 2, which did offend some eastern Coloradans. But that's neither here nor there. I say this because I have just confirmed through my research that eastern Colorado is by far the cheapest part of Colorado to live in. And I couldn't even say that without laughing for some reason. I don't know what's wrong with me. But here's the thing. You have to ask yourself, why is it so cheap to live in eastern Colorado? And I think the obvious reason here is, ask yourself, if you haven't moved to my state yet, ask yourself, why is it that you want to live here? I'm gonna guess that one of the first things that's coming to your mind is because you want to be close to the mountains and the outdoor, beautiful lifestyle the mountains offer. I know I'm correct, so thank you. Well, the 2 places that I'm about to list next are so far from the mountains. It's like a 4-hour drive to get to the mountains. So of course they're gonna be cheap. These are Kansas prices in Colorado, because basically that's where you're gonna live. If you're gonna live in these places, you're gonna live in Kansas or Nebraska Part 2. And so why would they be expensive? You're so far away from the mountains. So I just have to say that, because if you are thinking about moving somewhere super cheap and you choose the places that I'm about to list, you have to analyze the cost benefit give and take that's happening here. You're not gonna get any of the perks of being in Colorado, except for the fact that Colorado will be in your address, but you're basically just going to be living in Kansas. And again, I know I've so offended the eastern Coloradans, but you know what? It's the ugly truth. But with that being said, this place that is next to talk about is actually a really awesome place. Like if you have to live in eastern Colorado, you want to live here, and that place is Lamar, Colorado. Lamar is located in the southeastern part of the state, and it is so cheap you could get a 3-bedroom house there for like $150K. That's basically totally unheard of in any other part of the state, unless it's like in like an affordable housing program or something. Like you're never just gonna find that anywhere else in the state. And Lamar really does have a pretty cute feel to it. It's very quiet, very rural. Again, thinking about this Kansas metaphor that I keep bringing up, it's basically like a southern Colorado farming community. So it's got a big, like, friendly rancher vibe to it. It's also generally very safe and kind of secluded just because it is such like a quiet rural area. But again, the biggest thing that you are losing by living in a place like Lamar is you are so far from the mountains and all of the typical things that people want when they think of a life in Colorado that it doesn't make any sense to move to Lamar because you're 4 hours away, as I said, from everything. Lamar has its own unique beauty to it. It's also close to a state park that, of course, I can't remember the name of right now, but it's more of like a desert plains vibe out there. It's not like a mountain vibe. So it's something to keep in mind. But if you are someone who you want to live in a beautiful, quiet ranch area, then Lamar is great. That's the perfect place for you to live, basically. So now going from my southern eastern place to live that's super cheap up to my northern eastern place to live in Colorado. So the next place is Sterling, Colorado. Oh, Sterling. My interactions with Sterling have always just involved road trips and needing to go up. There's like a highway that goes up through Sterling to get to Kansas, to like get across the country. And I've only ever interacted with Sterling by going through there. And so again, it is incredibly rural. It really does. It's one of those places that as you're driving through it, you think you're already out of Colorado and that you're into Kansas because it just doesn't feel anything like what I relate Colorado to. It feels like full-on cowboy Kansas or something when you're in Sterling. It's very rural. I would say it's even a little bit more blue collar in some ways than even Lamar, which again, it's not a bad thing. That can actually be incredibly refreshing. And Sterling is even cheaper than Lamar because Lamar, it does have a little bit more just natural beauty in that southern eastern part of Colorado, whereas in the northeastern part of Colorado, I mean, I'm just gonna say it. It's kind of the ugliest part of the state. It truly is just like fields that aren't even cute. It's just like dusty fields. And again, you are 4 hours from the mountains. It's so funny when you're driving from Kansas into Colorado and you finally get to like the welcome to Colorado sign, you're like, what the F, if you've never been here before, because you can't even see the mountains when you come into the state from the east because it's still so far away from the mountains. There's a lot of plains in Colorado that people forget about as they're driving through before you even get to the Front Range and you get to the mountains. So this is why I tell you, ask yourself, why is it that you want a Colorado address? If it's just to have the word Colorado in your address, then yeah, Sterling could be amazing because it's so effing cheap. You could live there in, I think, a 3-bedroom house. You can find some for, I think, $80K. Like, that's how cheap they are. Okay, so we have talked about the Grand Junction area. We've talked about Pueblo. We've talked about those 2 eastern Colorado places, one in the south, one in the north, Lamar and Sterling. And last but not least, I have the place that is going to surprise you. Are you ready? All right, come closer. Come closer. All right. It's Wyoming. Okay, I bet you were not expecting that. But yes, if you really want to live in a place like Colorado, but you don't want to pay Colorado prices, then maybe you should consider Wyoming. Wyoming is one of those other beautifully square shapes that happens to be just right above Colorado. And Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is only like, it's like 2.5 hours from Boulder. I think I can get to Cheyenne pretty quickly. It is so cheap to live in Cheyenne, Wyoming, like crazy cheap. Whoa, bub. My dog is in here and he's got his little clackers on the floor. And I don't really know what it is that has made Colorado become so exclusive and expensive over the years, whereas Wyoming has successfully remained fairly wild and also inexpensive. Because in a lot of ways, they offer a sort of similar lifestyle. As I said, the majority of people who want to move to Colorado, when I ask them why, it's usually because they want to be close to nature. They want to be in the mountains. They want to be in like a beautiful landscape. And that's also in Wyoming. Now, of course, maybe the missing piece that's not in Wyoming, but that is in Colorado, is that Colorado has a very kind of cosmopolitan, eclectic culture that has developed here. And so a lot of people who want to move here, they have kind of an idealized vision of what not just the mountains are going to be like, but also what the culture and what the people here are like. And if you're curious to know more a little bit about Colorado culture, I have a lot of videos about that stuff. But because Colorado has been such a transient state for so many decades now, our culture really is very influenced by places like California or Texas or even the East Coast. So we have become this cosmopolitan, I don't know what other word to use, place of just a lot of different people coming here. And it makes it a little bit more exciting. It kind of gives almost like a big city vibe to a rural or natural area. And honestly, Wyoming, I guess, doesn't have that. They haven't been invaded by outsiders as much as Colorado has. So their culture of being kind of like just clean, rural mountain people has been, maybe a little bit unscathed. Although that's not true in all places, because there's also a lot of places in Wyoming that a lot of, Hollywood people own big fancy houses and stuff. And so obviously you're not going to move there. But bottom line, if you are moving to Colorado or wanting to move to Colorado and you don't really know anybody here, you are only moving for an idea of a lifestyle, it might be better to check out the same lifestyle we have here in a different state. But if you have people that you are moving here for, if you have a program that you are moving here for, like a specific reason you really have to be in Colorado, then obviously you're going to move to that location where those people are. But if you have freedom to choose, you might as well explore maybe some other mountain states that are also really cool and offer, a similar thing. So as your new Colorado friend, I really hope that I could help you a little bit. If you enjoyed the video, as all us YouTubers say, like it and stuff, but only subscribe if you are ready for the randomness that is the content on my channel, because what I am consistent on is I do make a lot of Colorado advice videos, but I also make a lot of other weird stuff. So you're gonna subscribe to me, you're gonna forget who I am, you're gonna see a Titanic video from me pop up in your feed, and you're gonna be like, what the hell is this? I didn't sign up for this. So if you aren't emotionally equipped to handle surprise videos from me that are totally off topic of Colorado, then don't subscribe. If you want to see all the other Colorado videos that I've made, I have a whole playlist on my channel somewhere, so you can watch all that. And if you would like to support me on Ko-Fi, if you got some value out of this video, I have a Ko-Fi account where you can buy me a coffee, and that really makes me happy when people do that. So feel free to do that, and I'll see you in my next video.